let me start there with Shohei Ohtani. It feels like it's the only story in baseball. How big is the coverage going to get with Shohei Ohtani over the next 2 weeks, Buster?
It is going to dominate the sport, where the question is going to be asked every day. Have you heard anything about the Angels putting the word out that they're ready to talk about Ohtani? Artie Moreno, in the end, in this decision, it's not going to be Perry Manassian, the general manager. You know this. I mean, it's going to be the owner, Artie Moreno, who said in spring training that he was not going to trade Ohtani as long as they were contending. Well, we're going into this 2 week period where they're going to be facing teams that they're chasing. They start out with the Astros, then they play the Yankees, and a few series later they play the Toronto Blue Jays, and then they face the Atlanta Braves before the trade deadline. And at some point in those last 72 to 96 hours, we probably might hear from Artie Moreno about whether or not he's going to trade Ohtani. And if he is traded, you talk about a frenzy. Idiots like me are going to be talking about this 24 hours a day.
Let's look at the possibilities here because we do. I know there's a lot of speculation. There's probably wishful reporting for people in the media. But if you were saying how many viable candidates could trade for Shohei Ohtani?
Not as many as people think, right? He's making $30 million this season, which means that to take him on for the last 2 months, you're taking on $10 million and you're giving up a boatload of prospects, young major league ready players. And there are just not a lot of teams who necessarily would entertain that. For example, the Dodgers have made some of the biggest moves at the trade deadline over the last 6-7 years. Manny Machado, for example. What I'm hearing from general managers is they don't know if the Dodgers this year would do that type of move. I think the Yankees absolutely would be all in, which makes sense to me because you've got Aaron Judge and Garrett Cole and Giancarlo Stanton essentially being middle-aged in their major league careers. This is their opportunity to win. The Texas Rangers are competitively relevant for the first time in a decade. They're a team that might be in. And maybe a wild card would be the Tampa Bay Rays. Their front office is not typically a team that would spend the kind of money and resource package. But on the other hand, they had such a great first half before hemorrhaging ground toward the back end leading to the All-Star break. And maybe they would be uniquely aggressive. Well, like when Freddie Freeman was a free agent, they finished second in that bidding behind the Dodgers.
Wow.
So I think those are three teams to watch. There might be one or two others, but not nearly as many as what people think.
I thought the Giants, just because of the location, they were all in on Judge and Carlos Correa. Could the Giants be a wild card in this?
Yes, but I would say, again, this scouting report is provided by general managers around the sport. Farhan Zaidi runs their baseball operations department. This is not the type of move that he would typically make, where, again, the combinations of dollars, which they have a ton of, because they didn't sign Judge, they didn't sign Correa, and the prospects that's going to be required. And, I think Farhan, in a clear-eyed moment, he'd probably ask himself the question, are we close to being a championship caliber team? And I think the honest answer at this moment would be no.
Have the Angels made an offer?
I don't know if they've actually put a number out there because, as the way this works is they essentially approach the agent and ask the question, are you ready to hear a number? Are you ready to negotiate? And they get fended off. Scott Boras has made a career of doing this. And I suspect that a similar conversation has taken place between the Angels and Ohtani's agent, Nez Balelo, sometime in the last 6 months. I asked this question in the last 48 hours. Hey, any sign of any last negotiation where the Angels go to Ohtani and say, look, we're ready to put a big number in front of you. Are you ready to hear that? And the answer I got back was no, which makes sense. I mean, he's this close to free agency of walking into this perfect storm of desperate big market bidders, Dodgers, Mets, Giants, you mentioned, Mariners, maybe the Padres, maybe the Yankees. Why not play it out when you're this close to free agency?
All right, I'm going to make you Artie Moreno. What do you do?
And if I'm Artie Moreno, not sleeping. Because on one hand, it's pretty clear that the best baseball move is to trade him, to get the prospects back. But on the other hand, why do we know the name Harry Frazee? Only for one reason. He was the guy who delivered the singular talent out of Boston into the hands of the New York Yankees. If you're Artie Moreno, politically, with your fan base and maybe for your legacy, the easiest thing to do is to wait till the fall, give an offer to Ohtani. If he turns it down, and that's what people expect that he's going to do, then you're off the hook. If you deliver him out of town for prospects, that's going to be your legacy forever. It's why last summer, I think, when the front office of the Angels did its due diligence, they talked to other teams, they collected information, took it to Artie. From what I understand, Artie went crazy. Like he was furious that they entertained the idea of trading Ohtani. And my gut is that's where he lands in the end, especially. I mean, Ohtani's having the greatest season we've ever seen. He's on a pace at 56 homers, driving 125 runs, strike out 235 guys, and you're going to trade that guy in the middle of that season. For Artie, I think it's a lot more complicated than, hey, what's the prospect package we get?